Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday, the best day of the week. Yee-haw! Powder River Letterbuck. Woo, doggies. Yes, sir.
It is so hard. It is so agonizingly hard.
What were you doing down there?
I was cleaning up the floor because we have guests coming in later.
I was going to say you weren't facing east.
All the Kit Kat wrappers and cookie crumbs and Cheeto Puff stains. I had to, do a quick polish of the studio, make sure everybody was, treated fairly and humanely when they come into the studio.
Forgot Chips Ahoy.
Well, that was the cookie crumbs I referenced.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, welcome everybody. By the way, that wasn't my mess because I'm not here on the weekends. So there, Mr. King. Anyway, lots going on. It was yesterday was an unbelievable news day.
Tragic.
It was terrible news day. 2 University of Montana students died within 12 hours of each other. And one from an accidental gunshot wound, and the other with undetermined yet as to the cause of death. That one was in Craig Hall. I understand that there was a candlelight vigil earlier this morning for those 2 students on the U of M campus. So, and condolences to the families and friends of all those who lost loved ones there. And I don't think I've been doing news for quite a long time here in Missoula. I do not remember the last time 2 University of Montana students currently enrolled were ever, killed within
that close of a time proximity.
Yeah. Anyway, so for those of you who knew the 2 individuals, prayers and condolences to all of you. So, and there was an inmate at the Missoula County Jail who, after breakfast on Sunday, went into a cell and collapsed, and he was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. So,
do they know why he collapsed?
They'll have to do an autopsy. He complained to his cellmate that he was having some sort of medical event before he collapsed. So, estimations could have been a heart attack, could have been a stroke, could be he was 54 years old.
Wow. So,
there you go. That's kind of a wrap-up of what happened in the news locally. But nationally, you have all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, lots of stuff. This letter to Iran story will never die.
Wow.
But probably more pertinent than that, in recent news, yesterday they found who they believe to be the shooter of those 2 police officers in Ferguson. I actually have tape of this. This is the prosecuting attorney. If you want to read his name, it's
Bob McCullough.
He came out and basically explained what was going on to the public, and here's what it sounded like.
Here we go.
This morning that we have filed charges just a few minutes ago against Jeffrey Williams. Jeffrey Williams, a 20-year-old man. He is now charged with 2 counts of assault in the first degree for the 2 police officers who were shot a couple days ago in Ferguson in front of the police station. Also charged with firing a weapon from a vehicle, which is a Class B felony in the state of Missouri, and charged with 3 counts of armed criminal action, 1 for each one of those. Essentially, at this point, and the investigation, I want to stress, is ongoing. There's still an awful lot to be done. But the charge at this point is a result of the investigation so far, information that was developed through, or the case developed through information that was provided by members of the public. Essentially what we've charged him with is firing shots. It's possible at this point that he was firing shots at someone other than the police, but struck the police officer. So the charge is still assault in the first degree. They're Class A felonies for striking those 2 officers. There was a weapon recovered, which has been tied to the shell casings that were recovered there. A weapon recovered from him, and he has acknowledged his participation in firing the shots, or his that in fact he did fire the shots that struck the 2 officers.
So they found the guy. The thing that I thought was really striking is the other day, what's the name of the MSNBC host? Oh, Al Sharpton. Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for answering that without saying anything.
No problem. Anytime I could be of assistance.
Link there. I was watching Sharpton, and Sharpton was basically standing up for the protesters, trying to make it look like this guy couldn't possibly have been one of the protesters. The argument was that the shot came from a hill far away, and I could just think of the grassy knoll, right? Anyway, apparently, Sharpton says that it was a handgun fired about a football field away up on a hill. And
if you know anything about handguns,
if you've ever shot a handgun, if you don't know what you're doing, you cannot hit a tin can from 7 feet away with one of those things.
Wow.
So
Good old Mr. Sharpton.
we might have, the best firearms shooter in the world, pistol shot anyway, to be able to just, offhand. And apparently the kid was caught in a car driving by.
Right.
So,
yeah. So
I don't know. I looked up this guy's Facebook page.
did you really?
Which is like, oh man, it was tough. First of all, it's really tough to read. Not only because of all the profanity and the constant use of the N-word and bitches and, all over, but every word that can possibly be reduced down to a single letter is. So you like CNBTY and you try to make out what that was. Some of the things that I found really frightening were, he made this statement basically about being willing to shoot people, and that if you're not, you're just not one of the brave. And there was other statements, and there was a video on there about how he believed the real Trayvon incident went down, and how the real, excuse me, can't think of his name right now.
I know. I can't think of it either.
It starts with an M.
Yeah.
Anyway, how that situation went down. Michael Brown, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the telepathic link again.
No charge for being psychopathetic. So go ahead.
So anyway, this guy apparently has admitted to it, but has also kind of indicated that maybe he wasn't one of the protesters. From what I can see on the Facebook page, it definitely looked like he was part of the crowd.
Okay. Well, anyway, those any word on how the two officers are doing? I understand they will recover, but it's going to be a long time.
I haven't heard an update other than that they were on their way to recovery.
Yeah. So anyway, that's good news. It's good news that they have a suspect in custody. It seems to be the individual that they were looking for. So hopefully, the people in Ferguson will back off and let the justice system, follow through. But I understand that there are people there that don't trust the police, they don't trust the prosecutors, they don't trust the justice system at all. So we'll see how that goes. That may be one of those never-ending protests, that Ferguson will be this seething, cauldron of unrest for Lord knows how long. And I don't know how in the world do you solve a problem like that? I really don't know. I honestly don't know how that would be solved. So anyway, 721-1290 is our number if you'd like to comment, 1-800-568-5309. We have a special guest, at least one, coming into the studio at 9.
Yeah.
And we have had a myriad of folks come into our studio talking about how they're opposed to the mountain water condemnation.
No, we've only had one.
Well, we've had
John Kappas.
John Kappas, and we've had some others.
Well, we've had Mayor Engen,
yeah,
which is the opposite of Kappas on that issue, right?
This is true. We had Mayor Engen, but it was so long ago that I'd forgotten. So, but we do have another individual here who's going to be on talking about that and reason that's significant is because I believe today is the day, probably right now in Missoula District Court, the lawyers are lining up their tons and tons and tons of briefs and beginning to talk to the judge about why mountain water should be condemned, and another side saying why it shouldn't be condemned and it should be kept in private hands. So
yeah, they're holding a rally tomorrow. So
cool.
If you want to go protest with them or rally, I don't know what the difference is, but if you want to hang out with them, that will be tomorrow. And they'll tell us more.
So basically, if you want to protest the condemnation, you should go to this rally tomorrow.
Right. Or if you want to support it, you want to rally with them.
Either
way, show up.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to come right back. 721-1290 is our number. Stay with us. Let's talk back. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5309. John King is over there. I'm Peter Christian, and we also have our Facebook page. If you would like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you on the phone or whatever. So go ahead, John.
So I wanted to bring a little bit of a local spin to a national topic here. More has come out on this Iranian letter.
Okay.
And people are accusing those that signed onto the letter of being traitors because they're trying to negotiate a deal or influence a piece of diplomacy, even though they're not the executive branch. And John Kerry himself came forward saying that the actions of the Senate were unconstitutional. And I have the clip. You can hear how he said it, and we'll have Tom Cotton give his response. Tom Cotton is the one that's been held responsible for writing the letter and has claimed responsibility.
He's actually a freshman congressman, right?
Well, senator.
Senator.
He's been in the Congress for...
Okay. All right. So here we go. Here's Secretary of State John Kerry.
How do you clear the air? Are you going to apologize for this letter?
Not on your life. I'm not going to apologize for an unconstitutional, unthought out action by somebody who's been in the United States Senate for 60-some days. That's just inappropriate. I will explain very clearly that Congress does not have the right to executive agreement. Another president may have a different view about it, but if we do our job correctly, all of these nations, they all have an interest in making sure this is in fact a proven peaceful program. And it would be derelict if we allow some gaping hole in this program that doesn't do so. But you know, let's see what it is first. And I think this applies to everybody, incidentally, who's been trying to judge this before, in fact, the deal, if it can be sealed, is sealed.
So
Okay.
there you have it.
Okay.
Unconstitutional. What about this? I really want to hear. If anyone out there thinks that the action of writing a letter to somebody is unconstitutional,
I
please
don't-
give me
I don't believe it is.
anybody in that category?
Yeah.
Or if anybody believes that the Senate has a role to play in passing treaties. If you think that's unconstitutional, give us a call. Or if you think that what Daines did by signing this letter will come back to bite him in the butt, I'd like to hear those calls as well, because I know you're out there. This is Missoula, after all.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
not like right-wing extremist city. So you probably have ideas out there, thoughts out there that might be different than what you hear from time to time on the radio. We'd love to hear your call, 721-1290.
So the question basically is, you're asking is, do you believe that Senator Steve Daines did something traitorous when he betrayed his country when he signed that letter by those other 30-some U.S. senators and sent it to Iran, stating basically that any deals that President Obama makes unilaterally with Iran could be easily undone with the next president, especially if it's a Republican. So was that a traitorous thing to do? So shall we play Mr. Cotton?
Sure, let's play Mr. Cotton.
This is Mr.
Well, you know what? We're getting calls. Let's take calls.
That's absolutely. We call it a talk show for a reason. So, Catherine, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning. I just didn't know whether you guys realized, but there is that website at the government, the White House, that has over 137,000 petitions now to charge those senators with treason,
Wow.
and which is a kind of an odd thing. And the threshold for eliciting a response from the executive is 100,000. So I don't know what'll happen with that. I don't think it is treasonous, actually, to write a letter. I think it is perfectly appropriate. You know,
Okay.
senators and representatives talk to foreign leaders all the time about all sorts of things.
And if that were the case, there'd have been a lot of treacherous things that have happened in the past that no one actually called treason.
Exactly.
So-
And treason is a very dangerous.
Yes. You're crossing crossing the Rubicon when you start claiming something as treasonous.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks,
All right,
Catherine.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Chip, you're on Talkback. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm a 25-year Air Force veteran. I was a pilot and a tactics training officer. And, you know, about the issue with Iran and Israel, I think maybe there's too much concern with Iran. If they were to develop a nuclear warhead and deploy it, in a sense attack Israel with it, you know, they would, not only would they be doing that, they're risking the lives of thousands and thousands of Palestinians. They would risk destroying the third holiest site in the Islamic world, the Dome of the Rock. And they would also risk nuclear fallout going into Lebanon, into Jordan, into Syria, and then they would become the pride of the world. So I personally think the risk isn't there. Yes, they may want to develop a nuclear warhead for standing within the world, but are they any worse than Pakistan? Are they any worse than North Korea? You know, we used to have the policy, the containment of mutual assured destruction with the Soviet Union. I mean, unfortunately, that's still going to have to apply today, I think.
Well, Chip, what do you think about the idea that some people have about that it may be not necessarily a nuclear blast, but like a dirty bomb or something like that?
Well, again, I can't go into a whole lot of detail, for obvious reasons, but that stuff can be traced back to the creator.
Okay.
And, like a fingerprint. And so if they were to, allow someone to do that, again, they risk becoming a parking lot. I mean, they would risk.
So you think that Iran is afraid of looking like a worldwide pariah?
I think so.
You realize they are already there.
Well, I think, though, right now, those in power, and this is typical of despots, is they want a devil in the world. They want someone to demonize. They want a country to demonize. In a sense, to get the light off of them. It's a lot easier to be a despot, a dictator, when you have something outside the country to hate. And so I think it's more of beating the drums than actually ever doing so.
So you're so comfortable in your psychoanalysis of Iranian leadership that you would let them have a nuclear weapon because you don't think they'd use it?
Well, the thing is at what risk do we put American lives or the lives of others to ensure that they don't get one?
Can I ask you a question? Do you think North Korea would be easier to change or harder to change if it didn't end up getting that nuclear weapon? Don't you think that nuclear weapons make and inculcate a culture of despotism in a country? I guess is the better way of phrasing that.
Well, I think it's, in a sense, I think that's going to happen anyway. It depends on the region. I mean, if you can read about North Korea and, why they came to be, in a sense.
Well, how did they end up getting their nuclear weapon? It happened shortly after we made a treaty with them for them not to get a nuclear weapon.
I didn't hear that part. Can you say that again?
I was going to say, we made a deal with North Korea so that they would not get a nuclear weapon. And that involved a relaxation on sanctions. 12 years later, they got a nuclear weapon. Right. Oh, dang it.
Hey, Chip, I hate to do this to you. But
they've been threatening to use it ever since.
We are completely out of time in this segment. I got to run, but thanks. Thanks for your call. And you're welcome anytime. Jeff, we'll get you on in just a moment. Stay with us. Be right back. We're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. John King's over there. He's on the phone right now. I'm Peter Christian. And let's get to Jeff, who's waiting very patiently. Jeff, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Good morning. Thanks for having my call.
You bet. What's up?
Well, regarding the subject we were talking about the senators sending the letter to Iran being treason, how can we call that treason when A, it's just sending a letter, as well as people are marking it unconstitutional when all they're doing is stating how our system works? If another president comes in, he can nullify any executive action that this current president does because it didn't go through Senate.
And it's not just anybody. It's the Secretary of State, almost President John Kerry, saying that it's unconstitutional.
Well, and basically what I hear you saying, Jeff, is it was just a civics lesson from the Congress to the people of Iran, right?
Exactly. As well as if someone's going to come out, John Kerry or whatever is going to come out and say that this is treason and or unconstitutional, where was all this criticism on the president not showing up to Netanyahu's speech, and how is that not affecting one of our greatest allies that we created after World War II?
What I'm wondering, Jeff, is that whatever happens in government, if you have to automatically discount what the other side says, because Republicans and Democrats just simply don't like each other. They can't seem to get along on anything. And so whenever one does something, the others are automatically obliged to put forth some, hyperbolic, comment. And so you have to put that one aside, and you have to put the other one aside, and try to find somewhere in the middle where you can figure out what is actually going on.
Yeah, it's super frustrating sometimes because they just feel like they're always fighting each other rather than just trying to make the country better.
I hear you. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the call.
Thanks.
It occurs to me that most people probably haven't even read this letter. Would you like me to read it?
Yes,
it's only 4.5 paragraphs. How long do I have?
You have 1 minute.
Boy, I don't think it's going to happen in 1
Well,
minute.
just give it a good shot. And
All right. It has come to our attention while observing your nuclear negotiations with our government that you may not fully understand our constitutional system. Thus, we are writing to bring to your attention two features of our Constitution: the power to make binding international agreements and the different character of federal offices, which you should seriously consider as negotiations progress. First, under our Constitution, while the President negotiates international agreements, Congress plays the significant role of ratifying them. In the case of a treaty, the Senate must ratify it by a 2/3 vote. A so-called congressional executive agreement requires a majority vote in both the House and the Senate, which, because of procedural rules, effectively means a 3/5 vote in the Senate. Anything not approved by Congress is a mere executive agreement. I got to stop.
Okay, we got to stop right there. So hopefully we have a special guest coming into the studio to talk about Mountain Water and the condemnation lawsuit, which is currently underway. We will be right back. Welcome to the second hour of Talk Back, brought to you by Office Solutions and Services, locally owned, solutions for every office, the Mustard Seed Restaurant. Bitterroot Motors, doing it right for more than 42 years, and by Automotive Cutting Edge, 1510 Bulwer, call 542-2218. As we often do, we try to nimbly shift gears, and so we're doing a local topic right now. John, would you introduce our guest, please?
Yes, right now we're speaking with, I got to get the last name here, Gillian Ellison, and the reason I reached out to Gillian to come on the show is there was a press release on, I think it was Friday, about a rally that's going on in Missoula tomorrow. I think it's called Take Back the Tap. And anyway, there's going to be a country rap star or some kind of hybrid between the two styles there. And people that are in support of Missoula's condemnation lawsuit against Mountain Water Company or Carlisle Group or Park or whatever the organization beyond that is.
The owner
Algonquin.
The owner de jure.
Country of Canada, Mozambique. And associated at all. So that's basically the reason I wanted to get her on, is to kind of give that take, people that are in the public that are supporting that. And we also want to take your call. So if you're out there, we want to hear from you. If you support the condemnation lawsuit, give us a call at 721-1290. If you disagree and don't, and we'd like to hear reasons for both sides. Once again, that number is 721-1290. And I'm going to kind of turn it over to Gillian real quick and get your take. What are the main reasons why you're rallying tomorrow?
The basic premise of our rally is to show support for public ownership of our water. And public ownership of our water is a basic human rights issue. When you have a large corporation who owns your water, you see less accountability to ratepayers. You see money leaving Montana. We send $2 million out of state every year. And if Mountain Water was owned locally, we would see that money staying in the state, going to aging infrastructure, going to creating jobs, and going to just general revenue within the state.
How do you know that the money would go to those things?
Because of the public process. So once it's publicly owned, our water would be subjected to the democratic process.
Well, right now there is a democratic process, right? That process includes going to the Public Service Commission, the city of Missoula, the mayor, city council, in that avenue have a seat at the table. If they don't believe that rates are fair, if they don't believe the equipment is being repaired, they can protest. They can say something. And as far as I know, there hasn't been anything said at PSC when it comes to rate hikes. So if there's an issue that the city of Missoula has, why hasn't it come up before?
An issue that the city of Missoula has had with
the rates that Mountain Water is charging the public and with the service that it's doing on its own system.
As far as I know, the issues that have really been cropping up came when Mountain Water was in a huge amount of debt and was sold to the Carlisle Group. And the sale to the Carlisle Group happened around 2011 and was backed by Mayor Ingen. And a lot of the issues prior to that, honestly, I don't know whether or not or to what extent issues were brought up prior to 2011. I do know that the city has focused a lot of its energy since then, since the sale to Carlisle, on monitoring Mountain Water, on keeping track of what's been going on within the city, and keeping tabs on Carlisle. And we know that last April, after Carlisle had already promised to Mayor Ingen that they would sell Mountain Water back to the city, that they rebuffed one of the city's offers last April, and then after that, they entered into purchasing agreements with Liberty Utility, which is a subsidiary of Algonquin.
Right. And so when it comes back to one of the first things you said was you thought it was I think a human right or can you go into the details about what you mean when you're talking about a human right as far as public ownership of the water?
Yeah. Well, when you have private corporations, a lot of the time what you see are rate hikes. And Missoula, for example, pays some of the highest rates in all of Montana. And that rate hike keeps the water out of the hands of some other people.
Like who?
Like people who can't afford it. There are people who can't afford to pay for expensive water usage. And when you have that rate hike, the arguments usually are something along the line of, well, if you have rate hikes, people use water less because they, trying to conserve because it costs so much money. They say that rate hikes also help pay for the infrastructure updates. But what you see actually is that rate hikes disproportionately fall onto the poor. And
everything disproportionately falls on the poor. That's a universal concept.
But we don't need to
hold on. It doesn't matter whether it's food or gas or housing or whatever. I mean, poor people don't have as much money, so obviously they are hit harder by any price increase. So what makes water so different?
Well, water is a necessity.
So is food.
But so with food, you can see, okay, so instead of buying salmon, someone is going to buy chicken. It's cheaper. It just is. But with water, there is no substitute. You cannot substitute water with Coca-Cola. And at this point, Coke is cheaper than
Although
water.
Peter has tried with Dr. Pepper. He's doing his darndest.
All right. Tell you what, we're up against our first break, Gillian, so hang on. We're going to take a little break. Catherine, we'll get your call here in just a moment. We have John's on line 2, and we have one line open if you'd like to talk with Gillian. Gillian Ellison from UM Climate Action, right? Oh, Climate Action Now. Okay. And Take Back the Tap. So we're going to come right back and talk with her and get your phone calls right after this. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Thanks for joining us. John King, Peter Christian, and joining us here in studio, Gillian Ellison with UM Climate Action Now, and also Take Back the Tap. There is a rally coming up tomorrow in support of the condemnation effort. So we promised we'd get the phone calls right away. So, Catherine, good morning. Thanks for calling. You're on with Gillian. Go ahead.
Okay, it kind of plays off of what you were asking her earlier. You're using the argument of water as a human right. And using this argument opens the door to, other human rights. What's to stop you from going after grocery stores or farms to put those in public ownership, or Northwest Energy for that matter, or rental companies for that matter? Because the arguments would be the same. And if that argument gained traction legally, you could use it for taking over anything that impacts an individual's life that they need to survive.
Or what I hear you saying is it's a slippery slope.
Yes.
Okay, so Gillian, what do you think? Thanks for the call, Catherine. Go ahead.
I think mostly the response to that is that there is an end. It's not going to endlessly build into taking over grocery stores, because as I was kind of talking to Peter about, there are substitutions in with food, for example, or with rent. You can have, instead of a 2-bedroom apartment, you can have a studio.
And there are EBT cards for food.
There are EBT cards. Right. There are subsidized housing. With water, there is nothing to substitute it for.
Now,
it is a basic.
Seriously, do we know that? I mean, I'd love to talk with John Kappas and say, what if somebody calls and said, I can't afford my water bill, what can you do? I'm sure they just don't immediately shut the water off. The Public Service Commission won't allow that. So
yeah, you have it's a 6-7 months, something like that.
However, if it's run by the city, the Public Service Commission is not involved anymore. So if the city deems that you don't get water, it will be cut off. So I guess I'm wondering how that would work.
The city, public ownership across the country has shown to have way lower rates. Not to mention that Missoula's water already should have way lower rates than other places in Montana because our water doesn't need to be treated. We have the luxury of being able to pump our water directly out of the ground and through the tap. We don't need to treat it. We don't need treating facilities. And this lack of, actual treatment is not represented in the rates.
So it needs less infrastructure, basically is what I hear you saying, right?
Yes, yep. It needs less infrastructure, and it's a basic human right.
So let's strap those headphones back on. Let's get back on the phone and say hello to Patty. Patty, you're on with Gillian. Go ahead.
Hi, Gillian. Thank you so much for working on this. You never, never, never turn your public utilities over to a corporation. 40 people that own Walmart, and don't quote me on this, but it's close, are richer than everyone in the United States. They're like twice as rich, half the resources. So as soon as these corporations get their hands on all the water companies, you can forget it. Water will be like gold. It already is in California. They're in such a serious drought that they can't grow anything. You don't have food without water. So Catherine's comparison doesn't make sense. Without water, you don't have anything. You don't have cleanliness. You don't have food. You don't have anything. And then you've got no concern for local farmers, for local enterprise, because these are corporations. They could care less about Missoula. They pretend to until they get their hands on everything. And Montana Electric, look what happened. The stocks were $32 a stock, and it went down to $0 or $2 or something.
That was Montana Power, yeah.
Enron. You have your choice.
Right.
What choice?
Yeah.
You have no choice with water.
Okay.
You hang on to your water, and you guard it like gold.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for your call. Go ahead, John.
I would like to read for everybody because I think it's important for this argument. Well, I'll read it after
No, go ahead. Quit.
Okay. This is a segment of a deposition between Mayor Engen and Mountain Water attorneys, basically fighting for the Mountain Water Company. And he was asked about rates. And so this is the question from the attorneys to the mayor. They say, quote, Mr. Mayor, you are not planning post-acquisition or post-condemnation, if you succeed, to lower the rates being charged to Mountain's customers, correct? And he responded, correct. So not lower rates, at least from the mayor himself in the deposition. They answer again, or question again, I should say. In fact, you're planning to raise their rates over time, correct? Question mark. And the mayor responded, we are not planning to raise rates over time. What we are doing is acknowledging that as a course of business, we imagine that we will have to. So, as a guy just reading this, lives in Missoula, I have a stake at play, I pay for water just like everybody else. It seems to me that I'm dealing with either a strong mayor form of government of my water system or a corporate form of government for my water system. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem, I'm not comfortable in saying or predicting that rates would go down. And I want to know where you get that security. Why do you think they would?
Across the nation, when you see water being transferred to public ownership, you see a decline in rates. Whether or not the mayor intends to himself lower the rates, over time, it would be unreasonable to assume that they wouldn't. It's also unreasonable to assume that just because the corporation and the city, both plan on having some increase.
Well, here's what you have to do. All right, here's what you have to do to willingly say, okay, city, go ahead, spend whatever you need to spend, millions, whatever. All right, get the city water, and then we are going to trust you. We are going to trust you to take good care of our water system and not overcharge us. There's a significant part of the population that says we don't trust government at all for much of anything, depending upon its past performance. So why should we, take a system that seems to be working okay, turn on the tap, water comes out, we pay the bill, da-da-da-da. Why mess with it with something that's actually working?
Well, yes, it's actually working, but I think it's I think it would be naive to assume that as soon as it's under public ownership, that all of a sudden your water's not going to be coming out of your tap.
That's true. That would be a straw man, I think. Yeah.
Water will continue to flow. We will still have water. However, again, just because it's between a government and a corporation, I get confused, I guess, in this argument that you can trust a corporation more than your local government. Your local government responds to elections. We get to elect these people. Who elected Mayor Ingen?
11,000 Montana voters.
Exactly. And who elected the Carlisle Group?
In the city of Missoula. But Mountain Water Company sends water to more than just people that are in the city of Missoula.
Totally.
But just the election process, and I think you make a good point, and that is the point the mayor as well makes. There is also a government agency that overrides or oversees Mountain Water Company's operations, that being the Public Service Commission. And the difference that you have in checks and balances there is that the Public Service Commission has what we call an adversarial process, where you have people, Mountain Water Company attorneys saying this, and we have another group, the Citizens, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. It's basically a citizens advocacy or ratepayer advocacy group arguing this. And you also have the opportunity for the city of Missoula to be at the seat of the table and argue for lower rates or argue for more investment into the infrastructure, which, by the way, they haven't been doing. And at the PSC, you have this what we call an adversarial system. So you have kind of, what do you call it, the devil's advocate system that I like as a talk show host. In the city of Missoula, you don't have that. You have a strong mayor form of government. This mayor, it's fair to say, I can read you the sections in the deposition where he admits it, went ahead and paid for attorneys that weren't approved by city council, went ahead and made promises to Mountain Water Company that didn't pay off without city council's backing, told city council that he was going to do this water lawsuit, and that he would check with them before he did and never did. I mean, so you have all this power invested in one man. That does not sound like democracy.
And, well, hang on. We're up against the break. I apologize for that. So we'll let you answer what John said. We have Dave, Candy, and Sam that all want to visit with you. So it's a very popular topic because this is our water and our money. So we're coming right back in a moment. This is Talk Back, and we are rocking this morning. It's Monday. It's John King. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in studio is Gillian Ellison.
Since I have the deposition here, I think I will read some more from it.
Okay.
Because it is kind of insightful.
I wanted to give Gillian a chance
to
respond to what you said at the end of the break.
Oh, that's right.
I cut her off there. So
I was talking about, it seems to me that we have invested a lot of power and decision-making power into one office in Missoula, and that seemed dangerous to me, more dangerous than the adversarial setup we have with the PSC.
Yeah, okay, so I understand that reservation of not wanting to continue to give that one office more and more power. My argument would be that you're doing the same thing with a corporation, and that corporation is not accountable to you.
But the fact is that they are accountable to the PSC, right? That process is there. The adversarial process is there. I mean, you could say that they have the same power, but frankly, it's just not true. The mayor would have certain powers that are greater and beyond what Carlisle has right now, because they would not be subject to the PSC.
But that is also operating in this fantasy world where you're assuming that Carlisle isn't trying to cut corners or trying to make a bigger return for its investors or trying to make more profits.
I'm not in that fantasy world. I think they try to make a profit. I don't disagree with you there.
Well, then what I guess I'm confused about.
I think it's a fantasy world to think that the city wouldn't want to take extra tax revenue in.
Totally. Okay,
so
I hear what
we're
you're
on
saying.
the same page now. We have one person making money for one reason, one person making it for another reason.
So what's the difference? Hold on. What's the difference between a greedy corporation and a greedy city that just wants to own the water company so they can charge more and make more money to do more things?
Great. Let's do more things in Missoula. There's lots of things that need to be done here.
Okay. So let's just keep pushing up those taxes, baby.
I'm not even talking about taxes even
okay,
or rates.
I got you.
Yeah, it'd be rates, not taxes.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
With the rates, what you would hopefully see, right, is that the money isn't just going to go lining the mayor's pockets. The money's not going to the mayor; it's going to the city.
Well, he does give himself a raise.
All right. Well, that's neither here nor there.
We all benefit from the city having more money.
Okay. So you wanted to read a couple more things.
Yeah,
from the
let me read this
deposition.
because it has to do
And
with
then we
the
have lots
future
more calls, too.
and the financial plan that the city has drawn up
Right.
on whether or not they will raise rates. Okay. Question, Mr. Mayor. This is the attorneys asking the question, I should say. Doesn't the financial plan prepared by your own experts, assume that the city is going to raise rates at the same rate a private utility would? Mayor responds, I would have to look at those reports. Questioner again. You don't know that your own experts' financial plans assume that you are going to raise rates at the same rate as a private utility? Answer from the mayor. Those are assumptions, and what we will do are much different. We're creating financial models that I think help us understand what kind of cash is available to us. Today, we don't have a plan. We just have financial models. Then the question again. So assume hypothetically that the financial plans of your own retained advisors and experts assume that the city will be raising rates exactly the same as a private utility. Are you testifying here today that you, as mayor of Missoula, post-acquisition, are not going to follow the advice of your experts you are paying so handsomely? Answer, What I am saying is that post-acquisition, the city of Missoula will do what it does best, I think, and that is make plans based on the reality of our situation, what the system requires, what the real expenses of the utility are, and move forward systematically. We will certainly do financial modeling. We will certainly rely on advice. But the fact of the matter is that these decisions have to be based in fact and circumstance rather than on speculation and where we might be post-acquisition. There are a number of extraordinarily big, outstanding questions, including what would it cost us to acquire the system, provided that a valuation committee gives us a number? Without knowing that, it's really hard for me to commit one way or another to a plan for raising rates over time. And then he goes on to say, this is a question again. I assume you will agree it is a certainty that you will not lower rates post-acquisition. I don't know that it's a certainty because, again, based on information we have today, there appears to be considerable cash available for either reinvestment in the system or for managing right now. And I imagine it's likely that we would not lower the rates, but I'm not sure that we can say without equivocation that it's not a possibility. So,
Okay, I'll give you 1 minute to respond, then we have to take a break, so go ahead.
So those short-term rate raises, or whether or not he lowers those rates, the short-term, that's not going to be the biggest impact of public ownership.
Well, that wasn't short-term. That was financial modeling for the future, whether or not they would keep raising rates the rate that the private company has.
Yeah.
And right now, the city is basing their expectations on that.
So, well,
doesn't that scare you a little bit?
No.
No? Okay.
Conversely, the chief administrative officer, Bender, and I quote,
Bruce Bender, yeah.
Yep, said city ownership would present an opportunity to stabilize the price. So there is another perspective that city ownership would stabilize the price so it wouldn't be going up or down, which is a lot less volatile than a corporation like Liberty, who has promised its investors a 44% increase in revenue, which we can assume would fall onto the ratepayers of Mountain Water.
And they also own several different companies, so it would be split between all those companies. So, yeah. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back. And I promised we'll get our callers on. I'm sorry about that. We just have so much going on. Dave, Candy, and Sam will get you guys on right after this break. I promise. So keep it right here. Hey, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290. I promise we get right to the phones. Let's do that right now. Our guest in studio, Gillian Ellison with Climate Now, and also the Take Back the Tap rally is coming up tomorrow. So, Dave, first of all, thank you for holding so long. We apologize. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Yeah, as a former operator of a water treatment plant, a system, in my view, the PSC is allowed Carlisle to overcharge. I think the rates are excessive. And to give you an example, there's, I guess, $4 million allotted for 39 workers, adds up to $100,000 per worker. I think that's a little bit on the high side, if my numbers are right. And so I really believe that the PSC has failed to keep rates reasonable.
Well, let me ask you a question, Dave. You're not the only person that thinks that rates are too high in Missoula. In fact, I bet 99.9% of Missoulians think their rates are too high. Also,
I think
their tax bill is too high.
I think my sewer rates are too high. I think my garbage rates are too high.
Bread costs too much. Gas costs too much. But that being said, the city of Missoula, its officials have complained that rates are too high. And here's my problem. when there was an avenue for the city of Missoula, for this city council and for this mayor to contest the rate hikes that have gone on through the PSC's oversight, they did not beg for more investment into the system, and they did not beg for the rates to be lower, other than through the citizens. So if the rates are high, it's because people are asleep at their jobs, it seems to me.
It's certainly possible.
The same people we want to put in charge.
It's certainly possible. You know, I would have gone and complained, but I live outside the city, so I didn't see the rates until I bought land in Missoula. So I wasn't aware of the rates. But since I have been aware of the rates recently, they are too high.
Right.
And someone has been asleep. You're right.
All right. Dave, thanks for the call, buddy.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Candy, we have a line open, by the way, 721-1290. Candy, go ahead.
I need to ask for some clarification.
Surely.
Gillian, are you a resident of the city of Missoula?
Yes.
Are you planning to stay in Missoula?
As far as I know, in the foreseeable future, I do not plan on leaving the city. I still have a few years to graduate, and I still have some more things to do here.
By the way, still just a sophomore in college, so kudos for her for being willing to go out and talk about issues in a forum that even mayors are afraid to take.
Yeah, and she's very well spoken, so go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify for that. And then after a few years after you finish college, will you be leaving to another state?
Probably not forever. I mean, I don't plan on necessarily being stagnant and keeping myself in one spot.
Well, she's from Shelby.
But I'm from Montana, and my great-great-grandfather homesteaded in the Judith Basin around 1900s, and I still have an aunt and an uncle in central Montana.
She could be a senator.
Fourth-generation Montana.
She could be a senator.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. My family's been here for a long time. I have a lot of vested interest
Sorry, that's an inside joke. I'm sorry.
In Montana.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the city of Missoula that is purchasing the water company, right? And if you're not here to pay the taxes for the next 20-something years as a property owner, then you won't be officially a part of this city for any length of time, and you won't be subjected to those property taxes.
Now,
right?
are you saying that she doesn't have the right to speak her opinion just because she's not going to stay here for the next 20 years?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if there's no continuity or longevity, then she won't be participating in those taxes that I am paying right now as a property owner.
That I have lots of family. I have a vested interest in Missoula, not just in Montana. I have family who
Candy,
owns farms.
hold on, Candy. Let her finish your point. Go ahead.
I have very close family ties to people who own farms here in Missoula, and I have very close family ties to the city itself. I lived here for a long time. Both my parents went to the university here. I know that it doesn't. I can't give you a final answer that I'll be here for the next 20 years, but I do have vested interest in the well-being.
Go ahead, Candy.
Make sure of that. I just want to make sure of that.
Okay, go ahead.
I was at the meeting where Robert Dove and Tracy Stone Manning and everything made their announcement about the first right of recension by the city to buy the water company. They never promised the city that they could buy the water company. And that's that. I was there. I saw it. I heard it. And they did not say at any time that the city of Missoula could buy or take over the water company. So you're wrong in that, and you weren't present there, and I was. And so this whole concept of being promised the water is not true.
Okay, Candy, we're up against a break. I appreciate your call. So we'll take a quick break, come right back. We have Sam and Charles who are both waiting to visit, and there goes the other line. You're a rock star now. You made all the lines go crazy. So we'll be back with more with Gillian Ellison, and again the rally is called Take Back the Tap, and it's tomorrow at noon out in front of the county courthouse. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in studio, Gillian Ellison. She's with a group on campus called Climate Now. And Take Back the Tap is the rally. It's coming
UN Climate Action Now.
Action Now. I'm sorry.
They don't just want to say the climate's here. That's not the goal, I don't think.
I accidentally put a line through action. My humble apologies. Okay, let's get back to the phone. And Sam, good morning, Sam. Thanks for holding. You're on.
Yeah.
to me, I think the heart of the issue is I know the rates have been mentioned a lot throughout the arguments on both sides, and I think that's really sort of neither here nor there because you are extrapolating on data years into the future that can be unpredictable, as we've seen with the 2008 economy crash. To me, it's an accountability issue, and the PSC has been brought up multiple times as being an accountable statewide agency, and I think to me at least, the citizens of Missoula, we would have more accountability if the city owned the water. We were talking about an agency that's blocks away, not miles away, in Helena. And I think that, Missoula County is one of 7 counties, I believe, in the PSC, and Bob Lake is the commissioner.
There's just 5, I believe, 5 regions.
There's 5 regions, yeah.
5 regions, correct, yeah, sorry, 7 counties in our region.
I see what you're saying.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I think you're about right.
But Bob Lake, who I would say is not nearly representative of the city of Missoula, but beyond that, he is one member on a board of 5. And I think if we're talking about accountability, I would much rather see much more public involvement by people just simply walking down the block as opposed to having to cross that barrier to get, into the Capitol.
Dave, let me ask you a question.
It's Sam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I thought it was Dave. Sam, if you had a problem with the rate hike that was going to go on through Missoula City Council, what would you do? What would your recourse be?
I can't say exactly, and I can see where you're going with it.
You get 3 minutes of a public speech that you can present to City Council, and then you get a vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You don't have an attorney. You don't have a team. You don't have a city of attorneys that can represent you.
You don't have what is called a consumer council to speak on your behalf. You're basically kind of on your own.
So,
and if you don't happen to live in the city of Missoula, if you happen to live in Missoula County, you have even less representation. Because I think it's important we all realize Mountain Water services people not in the city that don't get to vote for mayor.
So you believe we have more representation in the current process than we would.
Well,
I personally do, yes.
What I'm saying is I'm not automatically going to let go of a system that I know, at least I believe, has worked fairly well in the past in favor of one that is untried, especially in an enterprise of this size and import.
I think I disagree with Peter on one element. I think that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I disagree with Peter on one element. Public service, being run by the public, it's common. Most Montana communities have that system. So it's not like it's untried or unknown.
For Missoula, it is.
The question is the cost for me. That's the main question. How much are we going to pay to have what everybody else already has?
So, anyway, I'm
and
sorry,
Sam,
go ahead.
If I'm wrong, but don't most Missoula counties that do own their water publicly have lower rates than Missoula?
Most do, yes. You mean Montana, not Missoula, but yeah.
And so to me, when we talk about a system that's working fine, I would say it seems to me that the public ownership system seems to be working fine, if not better, than the current system that we have right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your call. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
So, Gillian, did you want to comment on that? Go ahead.
Oh, well, just the last thing that he was mentioning that maybe just clarify. Yeah, most other large cities in Montana do own their own water. They're publicly owned. They pay less rates. And I think that is a great comparison that we can make between Missoula and its water situation and the tension.
Are you aware, Gillian, of the history of how those communities came about owning their water? Was it something similar that what Missoula is trying to go through now? And if so, what kind of upheavals did they have to go through to eventually begin to lower their rates? Mm-hmm. I'm just asking. I'm just curious.
I actually don't know the history of whether or not some of those other cities like Bozeman or Butte actually have gone through eminent domain lawsuits or have had private ownership and switched to public.
I do know that they have not gone through eminent domain.
Yeah, I think in a lot more often, you see places that own their water have owned their water. It's a lot harder to go from a privately owned water utility to a publicly owned than it is to just keep it public.
Fair. That's fair. All right, let's get Charles on. Charles, thanks for holding. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think we need to question a little more closely the assumption that government manage things better and more economically than private businesses. Like, the United States itself is going bankrupt, and who knows what's going to happen with the Obamacare entitlement stuff. The web program they did for that after 3 years was a disaster. The pension system on many cities are going bankrupt following Detroit's lead, a great city like that. The VA health system, false reporting and so forth, found, veterans dying from waiting forever. And how about government and making sure records are secure for posterity and investigative?
If we could, Charles, I mean, as it seems like you could bring up a million bad examples of how the federal government has done things. There's no shortage of history, and there's probably a decent amount of good things the federal government has done as well. But I want you to stick to the state of Montana if you could. Apples to apples, Billings, Bozeman, these other places are publicly run. Do you think they have that bad of a shot?
Well, listen, I'll tell you what. I just throwing it in the hoop. That's one thing you got to look for. I don't have any rundown except I will say I think our pension system here. Hey, well, let's take this. Let's take the school system in Montana here. Just a lot of us think that you get a lot better product by unprofessional parents educating their kids than from well-funded professionals working under government direction. And there's pension problems there, too.
All right. Listen, Charles, thanks for the call. We got to take a break. I'm going to have Gillian answer your question when we come back. Walt and Pete will have 8 minutes. When we come back, we'll be right back after this 1 minute timeout. Hey, thanks for joining us on Talkback. Just a few precious minutes left in our time with Gillian Ellison, who is at Climate Action now, and the Take Back the Tap event is coming up tomorrow. So
let's finally got it.
Thank you so much. I'm here all week. Let's get Walt on the line. Walt, you're on with Gillian. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Anyway, I just wanted to point out things that I hear talk that Mountain Water and Carlisle Group is corporations. So is the city of Missoula. And you got bureaucracy and hierarchy and governing functions in both systems. I will say that as a tax preparer, and I see people paying taxes and businesses paying taxes, I don't see the government paying taxes. I see them taking. And so I would also see Mountain Water as a taxpayer, or Carlisle Group as a taxpayer. And the city of Missoula, once it acquires the water system, if it does, it will no longer be paying taxes. So there'll be a shift in the tax burden. So there's some things about the government that are positive, but not in this case, because we're delivering a product, and the government is driven to spend, and corporations that are out paying taxes are driven to save money. So with those incentives in place, it's going to be hard to see how the government's going to be more efficient.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Walt. Appreciate the call. Hey, Gillian, go ahead.
Well, you were talking about taxes. You were focusing on taxes quite a bit, and I don't have a great response to that because as Carlisle is a tax-paying group, and as you and me as a taxpayer, and juxtapositioning that against the city not having to pay taxes, I guess I'm a little confused on what you're trying to get at.
Here's a quick explanation. Right now, Mountain Water pays a large amount of taxes, property taxes, into the city of Missoula, right?
And to the county as well.
And to the county, yeah. And once you take that tax base away, which you would do by public ownership, to provide the same amount of service you have in Missoula, you have one giant taxpayer less. So you're either going to have to raise taxes on everybody else or raise rates.
Yeah, divvy that up.
You wouldn't necessarily have to raise rates to fill that gap. I mean, does Mountain Water pay $2 million in taxes every year?
I will look it up, but it is a lot of money.
I mean, I bet it's comparable. And so if it is, it would be replaced by public ownership because that money that is sent to Carlisle from the ratepayers here would instead be staying in the state.
So you're saving the tax, the savings on rates would be equal or better than what we're losing in tax revenue.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get Pete on the line. Pete, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good morning. Just a brief overview of the numbers as I see them to date. While you're on the tax thing, I think Mountain Water, John will confirm, is well over $1 million a year into our school system and local governments. that'll come out, not be available after acquisition by a public entity. Second of all, I'm concerned about the fixed and low income, as your guest is. And if that be the case, the way I see the numbers, you're looking at roughly $6 million of legal costs.
Real quick, it's $1.2 million in taxes each year.
Okay, and you're looking at another $6 million in acquisition costs for legal, plus the purchase price well over $100 million. And that's going to be funded by debt from the city, in which the city finance officer said we're looking at losing our bonding high rating because we'll be less money available, so we'll be paying more in debt service dollars on all our debts, plus this debt, and you're going to do all that without raising the rates on the low and fixed income. I'd love to see that magic.
All right, Pete. Thanks for the call. So what do you think, Gillian?
Well, the court costs right now are totaling $1.9 million, not $6 million. It's about $5 million in total for the entire court case, and that's counting the Carlisle group. But the city right now is only at only. I know it's still a lot of money, $1.9 million, and then the acquisition price, you're right, is going to be.
But allow me to ask a question, and I'm asking for information's sake. If the city does not prevail, wouldn't they have to pay Carlisle's costs in addition to their own?
Assuming that the city does not prevail,
right?
Which I guess provides even more incentive for this. I mean, for wanting to the city to prevail, because we've already started to go down this road, and at the end of this road, we can either see price stabilization after a certain amount of time, or we can see the city mishandling our water, in which case we can go through the process of re-electing officials. And
this is our second trip down the road.
Yeah, we did it in the 80s.
And how did that go?
It didn't go very well, and it didn't go very well because of the court weighed the employees' concerns. So the court case, the city lost because the city was offering the employees they were not giving the employees a good deal. They were offering them less money.
And you realize the employees in Mountain Water are saying the same thing this time.
But the city is offering, and I honestly, I shouldn't take a position on that because that's going to be between the city and the employees. But the city is offering employees the same. Publicly they said that they're offering the employees a contract of the same pay, same benefits, if not better pay and benefits.
I've read the deposition. They
And
legally
5-year
cannot offer the same benefits because they would be too much pay. Frankly, Carlisle pays them too much than the city can pay them, or is willing to pay them by contract.
But Carlisle is not going to be the continuing the contract. So their contract now is with Liberty Utility, which is only offering them an 18-month contract versus a 5-year contract that the city is offering them. And in the long run...
Okay, I'm sorry. We have, forgive me, I'm time sensitive here. We have less than a minute. So if you could just tell us a little bit about the rally and where and when and how folks can access your group.
Yeah, so the rally is tomorrow. It's at noon in front of the county courthouse. And if you want more information, you can email umtbtt@gmail.com, or you can find us online at canumt.wordpress.com. And if you do email us, I'd love to answer your questions.
Great. Well,
awesome.
Hey, you did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
You are a tough lady. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
And you're welcome anytime. Okay?
Right on.
Seriously. All right. And that's going to do it for today. Just a few seconds. What's going on tomorrow, Jim?
Senator Nancy Balance will be on tomorrow, state senator, talking about stuff going on at the legislature.
All right. So we'll do that. And I want to say, again, thanks to Gillian, Climate Action Now. Again, don't forget, the Take Back the Tap rally is at noon tomorrow in front of the county courthouse.
Yes.
Excellent. And how long do you expect it to go?
We have a couple of speakers, so at least an hour or two.
We'll see you then, and have a great day, everybody.